Assassin's adventure is calling once again, and after living out the pirate fantasy and sailing the Caribbean seas, I've got a handful of tips and tricks you need to know about. And this is everything I wish I knew sooner about Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. When it comes to sailing the open ocean and Black Flag Resynced, one thing you will quickly learn is that disabling and overthrowing enemy ships is a lucrative business. However, if you just jump aboard and start swinging away, you'll end up wasting time, and there's a much more efficient way. Once you dock alongside an enemy ship after it's been disabled, you'll notice a few objectives pop up on your screen. First, wait for your crew to pull you in close. This can take a few seconds, so be patient. Then hop on the swivel gun that's right next to your captain's wheel. This is essentially a mini hand cannon that you can use to fire a limited number of explosive shots at the enemy ship. You can use this to straight up kill enemies, but it's more efficient at blowing up the powder kegs that are scattered amongst the ship's deck. Blowing each one of these up will remove a sizable amount of morale needed to overtake the ship, speeding up the process immensely. On larger ships, you'll also have the opportunity to cut down the enemy's flag, which is attached high above on one of the ship's main beams. To quickly reach the flag, locate the crane at the base of the pole. Free run into it and you'll be propelled upwards, making it much easier to reach the flag. Just be careful of the marksman, who usually is on the opposite side. 2 hits usually means you're dead, so move quickly and dodge right as he's firing. By doing both the powder kegs and the flag, you bring down the morale substantially, requiring less actual combat, which speeds up the process of taking over a ship immensely. Black Flag Resynced introduces a number of combat enhancements that make the game altogether a bit more fluid. Instead of the instant counter kills that are present in many of the other Assassin's Creed games, enemies now have a yellow stagger bar that has to be depleted before you can take them down with an instant kill. For most basic enemies, a perfect parry, a parry timed right as the enemy is attacking, will still allow you to do an instant takedown. But for larger, more powerful enemies, you'll need to either string together multiple perfect parries or wear down their stagger in other ways. That's where your pistol comes in. While fighting, you can do a quick pistol shot by pressing right trigger and Y together. Edward will seamlessly weave in a pistol attack that will often kill enemies outright, but for the more elite enemies, will instantly deplete their stagger. If you're quick, you can capitalize on this small window and perform a takedown, killing the enemy. If you're out of bullets, you can opt to use the environment instead. Using right trigger and X together, you can thrust kick an enemy, and if they hit any part of the environment, they lose their stagger, opening them up for a quick takedown. You can also use right trigger and A together to sweep an enemy's legs, which knocks them to the ground, opening them up for takedown. But I found the range on this to be especially short and difficult to pull off. It goes without saying that Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced has you sailing across the Caribbean, which is a collection of dozens of islands, both large and small. Like any Assassin's Creed game, one of the most important things you can do is unlock your synchronization points as you're exploring the world. This is doubly important in Black Flag Resynced because each island usually has 1 or 2 sync points to unlock, but if you miss the opportunity during your initial exploration, you'll need to sail all the way back to this point later in the adventure, and that could be a time-consuming process. Bottom line, take the extra couple of minutes and sync up, making sure you have at least 1 fast travel sync point in each location so you can easily return in the future. One of the new additions in Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced is the introduction of new characters that you can recruit to your crew. After completing a side quest for each of these new characters, they'll join your crew, unlocking a new capability for the Jackdaw. Lucy Baldwin is easily the most important character to recruit. Her quest chain starts with the quest A Proper Shipwright. We won't spoil anything about her story, but once unlocked, Lucy grants the Jackdaw the ability to perfect brace, drastically increasing your survivability when fighting enemy ships. Just like a perfect parry, you can perform a perfect brace right as an enemy attack is about to land, greatly reducing its overall damage. This works when an enemy is about to ram your ship, uses its cannons or even mortar fire, making it an essential upgrade. The Padre is another one of the secondary characters you can recruit. His quest chain starts here with the quest A Second Chance, close to your home base at Great Iguana. Once you complete his story quest, you'll unlock the ability to ram dash. If you're a more aggressive captain that likes to ram enemy ships, this allows you to speed up, closing any gaps while also amplifying your ram damage. The final character you can recruit is Tobias Deadman Smith, was unlocked as part of one of the new quest lines in Reset. Not only do you have to be past the quest Everything is Permitted, which is a later game story quest, but you also have to start the quest chain A World Without Gold, where your crew confronts the Redcoat Maynard. Following this quest line will ultimately lead you to Dead Man Smith, unlocking him as part of your crew. Once unlocked, you'll gain access to Extra Salvo, an incredibly powerful passive offensive ability that gives your broadside attacks a second automatic volley, essentially doubling their damage. These captains fundamentally change both the offensive and defensive capabilities of the Jackdaw, so make sure to complete their quests as soon as possible. But there's one thing you need to know. When you fight and eventually disable a ship, you don't want to blow it up, because scuttling a ship only rewards you a fraction of the resources it was carrying. Yes, it's easier, but it also means you're missing out on roughly 75% of the loot you could have gained. Instead, pull alongside and board the ship and reduce the crew's morale by blowing up powder kegs, cutting down the flag, and killing the crew. Once you do this, you'll acquire all of the ship's resources, but it gets even better. Once you overthrow a ship, you'll have a few options. Depending on the size of the ship and the state of your ship, you'll be able to repair, restoring a huge amount of your hull's integrity, reduce your wanted level, send the ship to your Kenway fleet, or if the ship is big enough, capture the captain's lockbox, which grants even more resources. The best part is, you can do this strategically throughout the game. If you're fighting a group of ships and one ends up dead in the water, you can tactically board that ship, reduce its morale, and then repair your ship. During this time, the other enemy ships won't attack you, so you basically get to restore your hull integrity for free. This is a fantastic way to deal with groups of ships that combine larger vessels like brigs, frigates, and man-of-wars. Is the more RPG-centric upgrades that make Edward a more formidable pirate. The game doesn't make a big deal about these upgrades, and as you go on living your swashbuckling life, it's easy to forget that you can upgrade a good number of things. When you're in your inventory, you can click on this anvil and hammer icon on the bottom of the screen. This will take you to a secondary menu where you can upgrade all of your tools and weapons. This includes increasing the capacity of your ammo pouch, increasing Edward's base health, and even how many pistols Edward can carry. The thing is, to craft these upgrades, you need various animal parts. When exploring the world, you'll see that each island and territory has different animals. These can be tracked and hunted like any other enemy, and that's good because each upgrade requires specific animal parts. More advanced upgrades require rarer parts, which often means you have to engage in the game's harpooning activity. Don't think you can just waltz into a great white shark kill. You have to upgrade your harpooning capabilities like everything else at the Harbor Master in Great Iguana. Here's the good news. You don't need these Edward upgrades to get through the main story, but some of them, like the increased ammo capacity, is really nice. So it's worth slowing down and doing a bit of grinding if you want to make Edward even more powerful. One thing that's making its return to Black Flag Resynced from other modern Assassin's Creed games is the Pathfinder. This is turned off by default, but if you place a marker on the map, either a POI on land or a location while you're sailing the seas, you can turn the Pathfinder on by holding up on the D-pad. This will add the classic Ubisoft white line as an overlay that will lead you to your objective. While sailing, you can take this a step further, and if you don't want to manually sail your ship, you can hold down Y and the Jackdaw will follow the Pathfinder route automatically. While autopiloting, your ship will avoid any vessels that you'd otherwise collide with, so it's a nice way to automatically get from point A to point B with practically no intervention. Is that throughout the game, you'll be faced with a number of scenarios that don't require direct combat. In some instances, you'll need to interact with a quest object or kill a notable individual, but between you and those objectives are usually scores of enemies. It's important to realize that you don't need to kill everyone to complete your quest because there are no real direct RPG elements in the game. There's very little point in actually killing enemies outside of just a few extra reals or some bullets for your pistol. You can choose to sneak around and assassinate everyone, but that takes time, and if your goal is to see the main story through to completion, focus on the objective instead. There are also a few quests that require you to run away and become anonymous, and the same rule applies. Don't feel like you have to kill everyone in order to escape. Because Resynced offers so many traversal options, it's relatively easy to escape enemies by free running and then hiding in some bushes or another location until the enemies lose their scent. One of the many sub-activities in Black Flag Resynced is centered around enemy forts and the Kenway fleet. Once you unlock the manor in Great Iguana, you can start capturing enemy ships that you disable and send them back to be part of Kenway's fleet. As you capture ships, you'll be able to deploy them on missions at the fleet table, which you can access from the manor or below deck in the captain's quarters of the Jackdaw. Here's the thing, you might think an armada of man-of-wars is your best option, but actually you want ships that can complete the automated missions you actually care about. When you interact with the fleet table, you'll notice that most of the territory is locked off. To reveal new missions on the map, you need to destroy the defenses and overtake the various forts that are found throughout the Caribbean Sea. Controlling a fort unlocks missions in that sector, and once you have the entire map revealed, you have access to over a dozen missions. Trade missions can only be done by schooners and reward reals and resources. Piracy missions can only be done by brigs and reward resources. Scout missions can only be done by frigates and restock nearby warehouses, which you can then loot for more resources. And finally, patrol missions can only be done by man-of-wars and reduce the risk level by 1 in associated sectors of the world map. Another benefit of capturing forts is that eventually you'll unlock additional abilities for your Jackdaw, the first of which are the devastating front cannons, which shoot out a double volley of cannon fire that deals substantially more damage than the chain shot your ship has by default. Bottom line, when you're tired of slinking around in the bushes and stabbing redcoats, there is plenty to do if you turn to the sea. So there you have it, everything I wish I knew sooner about Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced after beating the game and spending more than 25 hours sailing the high seas.